Okay, this is the structures portion of the standard plans update training for the new book. We will be covering the standard pair of changes, a little bit of this, a little of that, editorial changes, minor, major, standard plans, followed by the SPI and cell revisions, and a little on the developmental standards. This training, like Ed said with his, does not include all the changes. This will just highlight some of the more interesting ones, some of the ones that may affect you more. The standard plans, along with the SPIs, are in two separate lists in numerical order, and I've had some questions on this lately. The trick to this is first to get into the right section. If it's on a bridge, go to the bridge section. If it's roadway, go to the roadway section. Then think of your specification, like 521 covers concrete barriers and traffic railings. So if it's on a bridge, go to the bridge section to the 521. And there are two items that are not obvious as to their locations. One's walls. All the walls are in roadway section. And box culverts, regardless of the size, are in the bridge section. To review changes to an index, Derwood went over some of the revision log, but this is different in that it is totally in numerical order, that it is not separated by structures and roadway. Now, last year we introduced the Standard Plans Packager tool to assist in bundling the standard plans for the structure set. And this year we've made a little change. We've added a selection that you do by the let date that will choose the proper year to be inserted into your plan set. Okay, editorial changes. We've made a lot of little editorial changes. Most of them were the standard. There's a change from barriers to traffic railings. Last year we tried to define that more clearly, and this year we just went through and cleaned up some of the things we missed. Other editorial changes are just typos or spelling errors. Some of these will be in the revision log, but typos and spelling errors, we just kind of fix them and move on quite often. With all the changes last year, changing the standard plans and the renumbering, we made a few little misses. One was that we missed that the storage facility phone number had changed. So pay attention to that if you're using the temporary detour bridges. Additionally, let's see, on concrete I-beams, the correct notes were on the sheet, but some of the references were incorrect, so we fixed those. And a note was added to this release regarding holes in the beam webs for temporary bracing or shipping devices. These holes must be formed prior to casting, as always, and past practice would require all holes to be filled. Now, if they meet the listed criteria, the holes may remain open. And due to multiple questions on the jacking forces required for the concrete sheet piles for CFRP, the jacking force was added to index 455-440, and we also added to 455-400 just for clarity. And the designer information section, modulus and free stress losses, was moved to the SPI. Per request from construction, a note was added to index 521-512 and 521-610 to clarify how the asphalt on top of the junction slab is to be paid. The variable thickness asphalt is structural overbuild. Now, in the last update, we removed parts of the barrier delineator notes that were covered by the specifications and inadvertently lost part noting the color to use for these delineators. So those have been added back. Index 521-620. Note 7 was added to reference the bullet rail, and Note 8, which was copied from other indexes about the end transition to make way for the bolting. And a change was made in the width of the bar 5U1 in index 521-630. Before we said it was variable width, but that bar was a set distance, set space length, and we have changed that to formally account for that variability. Now this I debated on whether it was a minor or major. What we've done, per request from contractors, is we basically added a bar that is an upside down version of the 4P1 that was used. The open top was always because we knew we'd be drilling into the top to put anchor bolts for the bullet rails. So this is an option that the contractor can use, and it's up to him to space it so that he doesn't burn up his drill bits trying to put the bullet rail in. It was a real tight index, had a lot of stuff, so we've added another page just to clean it up and make this more clear. Now, an errata was added earlier this year for the auger cast pile for the perimeter walls to match the noise walls. And the other minor change we made was just a clarification to the conduit detail in 630.010. It seemed to indicate you could only use it for double, but you can also use it for triple conduits. Now, on to major revisions. This is one that will only affect those doing the post-tension bridges, the segmental bridges, and we've added a pocket to help assist with the inspection and the threaded plug, getting it into place. Before it was very tight and very difficult. Also went through the procedure notes and changed those, updated those to make them more clear. And the polyurethane top coating, which was in the specifications, has been added to the drawings to highlight that requirement for both super and substructure post-tensioning. Indexes for the traffic railing noise wall or concrete barrier noise walls have been reorganized. We tried to move all the notes to the first sheet and made some changes to notes. Just read them carefully, but the information hasn't really changed. And there have been multiple projects where alternate reinforcing details were added so they could be slip formed. So what we did was we looked at it again and changed the reinforcing to make it easier to slip form. We've put it into 3 sections, one for the foundation, one for the traffic railing or barrier, and one for the wall. That way the railing or barrier portion can be slip formed. Now, these do not change the concrete dimensions or the weight. Now, for off-bridge applications, the width of that foundation that it sits on can be increased at no additional cost to make slip forming easier, because it only gives you ½ inch as drawn. And we are aware of these more robust designs that have been out there that can be fully slip formed, both the traffic railing and the wall. We decided at this point not to make them a standard, but they're out there and can be considered mostly for off-roadway, not for bridge use. Now, over the years, we've had a lot of requests on this one to make it changes to this pedestal so the pedestal could be poured at the same time as the deck, and the traffic railing could be slip-formed. Now, the depth of the pedestal is required to resist the loads from the light pole. So the new option 2 maintains the top level of the concrete as a single pour instead of being raised up, and the bottom elevation is dropped. Now, this will make slip forming the traffic railing possible, but it might be difficult to form. This detail is intended as a contractor option unless, in a very rare case, the elevation of the cantilever section is critical. Now, the use of FRP reinforcing for MSE walls no longer requires special permission. So we have added a section for the durability requirements for the FRP reinforcing to the index 548020. And now on to standard plan instruction changes. Now, the notable ones on this is we've tried to add more clarification on box culverts as to clarifying what goes where. And a small note was added to the Florida I-beam graphs, noting that the camber in those graphs, in the SPI, may not meet the camber requirements, and you need to check to make sure that those are met in all cases. And Index 455, 400, and 440 precast concrete sheet piles had that section modulus that I mentioned earlier, and the pre-stress after losses information added from the standard plans, because it's more of a designer issue than a contractor. And 521, 500 concrete barrier noise walls were updated to allow up to 3 conduits in the barrier or the traffic railing section, and slip forming information was added. 521, 660 light pole pedestal bridge. We have added some requirements and loads to Index 534, 200. For the anchor bolts to the light pole pedestal for the bridge. And on the noise walls, we've added information on alternate technical proposals, mostly to deal with the fact that some of the precasters have requested that we give you to use basalt or FRP reinforcing, and this gives them the method, or the designer the method to do this for the non-corrosive materials. The cell library. Please update your cells. We've only made 2 changes for this next update, be the next push, but they are also available on the website, so you can always download the latest and greatest that way, but it's best to update that cell library anyway. The changes are minor. We just deleted some notes and updated. And now, the developmental standards. There have been, I think there was a email sent out recently that the innovation website has been updated. We've added the ultra high performance concrete, and we're working on all the developmental standards to update them to the new numbering, and the Florida slab beams. We have had really a lot of them put out there. It is really a major success, and we've had very little troubles. The contractors seem to love them. We're going to try to get out there and do some field inspections ourselves, and those may be moved to the standard plans next year. But we are also working on details for attaching exterior beam formwork and some details for a link slab. Steve Nolan's been working on. Now, we are here to do what we can for you. If you ever have a suggestion for new standard or improvement, we would love to hear from you. Preferably give us time to get it done. We had a lot come in right as we were finishing up this year, and I couldn't implement them in time. But we are working on them, and they'll be analyzed for next year. We do consider all ideas, but would much prefer submittals come early, not the last minute. And as most of you know, Steve Nolan has been kind of moved aside. They're using his creative side and organizational skills to expand the use of non-corrosive and innovative materials. So I still pick his brains as necessary, but we're trying to free up his time for other endeavors. So I am the main contact for the standard plans, drawings for structures. You can email me anytime or call about questions on an index. And here's your team. We will all be glad to help you in any way we can.